In a move that is certain to upset literally no one, I will be ranking the top 10 Trails characters right now. Let's go. Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon, and this is the release week for Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake. I don't know if you're excited about that, but I am, okay? Trails in the Sky First Chapter is one of the greatest games of all time, and this remake, honestly, is probably the best video game remake that I have ever played. Yes, I am currently playing it right now. There's no embargo on this review, so I'm apparently free to talk about it. But yeah, I am, where am I, like partway through chapter 2, so I'm not super far yet. There's still quite a ways to go. And I am just losing myself in this game. I'm definitely not going to have my review ready by release date, which I think is this coming Friday. There's just no way. It's too good. It's too big. I'm spending too much time. Like, I'm not rushing. I should maybe, but like, I don't know. I feel like it deserves for me to take my time with it and really kind of absorb everything so that I can speak clearly about it, right? I want to be able to give you my unfiltered thoughts based on the entirety of the experience. So my review will be coming, but probably not by release date unless by some miracle I'm able to manufacture like 60 more hours between now and then that I don't have to do anything else. Mathematically, that seems challenging. We'll see. Anyway, today I wanted to take a little bit of time, okay, and rank my top 10 favorite Trails characters. Now, just as a caveat before I get into it, there are some characters that I think might have snuck their way onto this list, but in order for me to talk about them, for me to tell you why they're a favorite character of mine, I would have to spoil some fairly significant plot points in the series. And because, you know, a lot of people are going to be starting the series for the first time with Trails in the Sky First Chapter, I don't want to put that out into the world. Right now, I'm just going to be talking about 10 characters that are among my favorites and like keeping it very like, you know, surface level. If you haven't played the games in which they feature, I don't think anything that I say is going to really spoil anything significantly. But if you are sensitive to that, if you are planning to start with Trails in the Sky First Chapter and you don't want to know anything, I totally understand why you might want to bow out of this video. Maybe bookmark it, come back some other time once you've caught up or whatever. I'd really appreciate it. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Just protect yourself. Don't get spoiled unless you are comfortable being spoiled. Now, okay, all that's out of the way. Let's talk about my top 10 favorite Trails characters. Shall we? Let's do it. I'm scared. Please don't beat me up. Please don't beat me up. All right, number 10. Number 10, which sounds like my least favorite because it's so far down the list, number 10. But there are like 1,000 characters in this series, so if you are in the top 10, if you're number 10, you are amazing. So number 10 for me is Nadia Rain. Nadia Rain. I love Nadia so much. I think some people find her irritating because she's got that kind of like, I don't know, almost like Gen Alpha sort of way of speaking, and she doesn't take anything seriously. But she does all that in a way that I find hilarious, honestly. But on top of being like hilarious and irreverent and just great in that respect, she's also fully psychotic. Like, she is a psychopath. And I think she would probably acknowledge that if presented with the terminology and an understanding of what that means. She is a psychopath. Like, she has no empathy or ability to sympathize. Like, she is she's a trained killer, and that's something you know about her from the very beginning. She is also one of the good guys now, so it's like, you know, it's a little bit odd, right? She's somebody that would be abhorrent, right, in modern society, but she's just this charismatic, hilarious, off-the-wall kind of psychotic killer. And I don't know, man, there's just something about that character type that is very appealing to me. What does that say about me? I don't know. Should I be concerned? Well, I don't know if I should be concerned, but maybe my loved ones. Point is, I think Nadia is fantastic. Her relationship with Swin, he kind of, you know, comes across as like a piece of dry toast in comparison. I don't think he's a bad character, but like when you put him next to her in every scene, she's stealing the show. He's kind of just there rolling his eyes. Everybody who's that kind of scene-stealing manically crazy character needs that sort of wet blanket to anchor them. And so I understand Swin's role in Nadia's whole thing, but he just kind of suffers by comparison because he's not Nadia and she's great. So number 10 on my list, Nadia Rain. Mwah. Love that character. Number 9 is a little old character by the name of Lecter Arundel. Okay. Lecter is honestly one of the more pivotal characters in the series for being as relatively minor as he is, right? Like, he's not a major playable character. Not that you never get to play as him, but he's not like a significant party member, right? Like, he's sort of a secondary character, but his influence on the events that happen, he's always got his hands in almost every major event that's going on. When you first meet him, I think you meet him in Trails in the Sky the Third. And when you meet him, he's just a student. He's kind of a lazy, good-for-nothing, skipping class. He's on the student council, but he never shows up for meetings. He's just hanging out on the roof, kicking back, smoking cigs. I don't know if he's actually smoking cigarettes, but, he's just hanging out, doing his own thing. He's not interested in all that, mumbo jumbo legalese. We need to do this and that. Got to follow the rules. That's not how he plays. He's just like, whatever, man. I'm chilling, and I respect it. As somebody who wishes that he could do that, as somebody who aspires to be kind of the lazy gadabout who just does whatever he wants, I admire that. I think it'd be great to care so little what other people think of you. That's my dream, is to not care what people think of me, but I do. So when you leave the mean comments, they hurt. They hurt. And the nice comments feel good, so keep those coming. Appreciate it. It seems like he wears all of his emotions on his sleeve, right? It seems like you understand everything about him. But I don't think that we do. Like, he has what I would consider the sharpest mind in the series. Even when he's not, even though there's people above him kind of telling him what to do, he is always sort of in control of every situation that he finds himself in. He's at least 10 steps ahead of everybody else. Anybody who's smart, who's close to matching him, he's still at least 10 steps ahead of them. So he is kind of a mastermind behind a lot of the things that happen in the series, both for good and for bad, right? He's the sort of character that is not easily categorized as like good or bad. He's sort of a chaotic force, but at the same time, he's functioning within the structures that are there. So you can't really call it true chaotic, right? Like, I don't know. He's just such an interesting character, and I really like that there is someone like him in the story, because he shows up a lot. Like I said, for somebody who is relatively minor in the grand scheme of the characters in the series, he shows up quite frequently as a secondary player and is involved in so many things throughout the games. We see him in Sky the Third. He's in the Crossbell games, obviously the Cold Steel games. I don't think he's shown up in Daybreak. I'm trying to remember. I just played those like within the last 2 years. I don't think he shows up in Daybreak, but I'm sure he's mentioned, right? Like, he's just a force within the world of Trails, and I think he's fantastic. I hope we see more of him. I'm sure we will. Number 8, Toa Herschel. Toa, my girl Toa. She is as far as I'm concerned, the canon pairing for Reen. I'm sorry, everybody that likes Lisa or Laura or whoever. It's Toa. Like, if you go back to the beginning of Cold Steel, Toa has the most canon interactions with Reen. What do I mean by canon? What I mean by canon is her interactions with Reen are not determined by how you choose to spend your free time points, right? In Cold Steel, you get a certain amount of points every chapter. You can use those to spend time with different characters and enhance your relationship with them. So you can do that with the girls and eventually decide to date them, or not really. It's kind of lame, actually, how it all plays out, but you have the choice of who to spend your time with. Toa is not one of those characters, at least in the beginning of the series. She's not someone that you can choose to spend that sort of time with. But because of that, you have several scenes where you interact with Toa, where Reen interacts with Toa, and it seems like there's a relationship building there, and that is canon. That's canon to the series. That stuff did happen. It's not based on whether you chose for it to happen or not. So from that perspective, I consider her like the canon pairing. Now, in reality, just as an aside, the canon pairing for Reen is honestly nobody. Reen is alone. Reen is a samurai meditating in the mountains, shirtless, sitting there in the frigid cold, cross-legged, just breathing and being present. That's Reen. Okay, Reen's not a relationship guy. I don't see him as a relationship guy at all. But if he had to have one, I think it's Toa. Okay, it's Toa. Okay, but back to Toa. She is maybe next to Lecter the smartest character, right? Like, I wouldn't say that she's necessarily ahead of Lecter, but she is just a pure strategist, right? I like that the way she's presented as this very small, kind of soft-spoken, meek girl when you meet her. And as she grows, I mean, she ages, but she's pretty much capped out her height in high school. She's not getting any taller. So she's still a small and quiet and somewhat meek presence, but she has this energy and this fire behind her. And a lot of that comes from just her brains. She's so freaking smart. She is, like I said, an expert strategist. She knows how to play the game of international politics. And she's known how to do that since she was basically a kid, right? She's been just an exceptional force on the world stage from that very young age, kind of showing that you don't need to be a big commanding presence physically to have that kind of power, right? She is just an exemplar of what it means to have just pure inner strength. And I think that makes her fantastic. Love Toa. Ren is number 7. Ren. What can I say about Ren? She's obviously a fan favorite. I think she gets a lot of attention from the broader Trails fan community for a lot of good reasons, and also I think for a lot of kind of questionable reasons. What do I mean by that? I guess I mean, like, her backstory is extremely tragic. Out of all of the characters, she definitely rivals, is in the running for most tragic backstory of any Trails character. There have been, I'm sure, innumerable videos and articles written about Ren and how her backstory informs who she is, who she becomes, what she does. And that's all good and important stuff to talk about. But I feel like in the broader fan community, sometimes there is this sort of almost fetishization of her tragedy. Like, everybody's always like, oh, you gotta play Trails the Third. So you see, like, oh, it's the most miserable, darkest, horrible, most awful thing. And it's like, what do I want to call it? It's like suffering corn, if you know what I mean. Suffering corn. It's like, I think that Ren is so much more than that tragic backstory. That's just kind of the seed that started the whole process of Ren's growth, right? So Ren is deeply complex. She has a family history that is so unusual and heartbreaking. I don't know. She's one of the more redeemable characters from the perspective of, like, someone who does bad things, not necessarily for the right reasons, but who does bad things that can be, if not excused, understood, right? And I think that's the benefit of her tragedy, of her backstory, is that it creates context for the things that she does in the games. And it doesn't excuse them, but it does explain them, if that makes sense. She is extremely smart. She's also very savvy. She's like very street smart. Like, she knows how to work people. Not just like, she's a hacker. She's a brilliant mind as well. But she's also just extremely savvy in the way that benefits her in, like, manipulation, and even in non-negative ways, like rallying people together. She's an incredible character, and I'm not meaning to kind of crap on the way people view her and say, like, oh, you're wrong if you focus too much attention on her backstory. It's fine. Everybody do what you want. I feel like it gets brought up to the point that it kind of overshadows her. It overshadows, like, who she's become over the course of the series. She's been in so many games, you guys. She's one of the most prominent major characters in the series. And you wouldn't necessarily think that would be the case from how she's introduced. You would think that maybe she would be one and done, or maybe two and done, and out of the story. But she is a significant player in the entire Trail series. And I would love to see the fan base celebrate more than just her tragic origins, if that makes sense. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Number 6 is Yuna Crawford. Yuna is, in my mind, and I think basically in reality, the protagonist of Cold Steel 3 and 4. I know you could argue against that. They definitely framed Cold Steel 3 and 4 around Reen again, but she is truly the heart of those two stories. She takes on the role basically that Reen had in Cold Steel 1 and 2, and Reen obviously steps up into the role of teacher. That's well known that's kind of his path. Yuna filling that role for Reen as like the star student, as the person who has the most to prove. She does such a good job of filling that role, and she comes with way more emotional baggage than Reen did, for sure. Reen has his own personal hang-ups and questions about himself and his background. Yuna has some of that stuff too, but like a lot of her motivation revolves around where she comes from, right? She's from Crossbell. She's going to school in the Empire, and there's a lot of kind of hard feelings, to put it lightly, around that relationship around the time of Cold Steel 3 and 4. So she is kind of, putting herself out there in a way that would be difficult, I think, for anyone to do. In general, going to school in another country is going to be hard no matter the circumstances. But she has on top of that this sort of baggage related to the relationship between Crossbell and the Empire. And she sees Reen in sort of a dual light, right? She sees him as this oppressor, this representative of this oppressor who is kind of holding her people down. And she also sees him as sort of a savior, right? Like she has these two warring ideas about Reen that she has to kind of focus into one. And that's kind of her story in Cold Steel 3 is kind of working through all of that stuff. And then Cold Steel 4, she's kind of resolved a lot of her internal conflicts, and she's able to really step up. And you really do see her in the beginning of Cold Steel 4, because of the events that happen in 3. You see her as kind of literally the protagonist. It's not even as arguable, especially in the beginning of Cold Steel 4. She's taking on that mantle of protagonist for the story, at least to a certain point, and then it becomes a little foggier. But she's just such an important character to the series. I really would have loved it if Falcom had just made her the main character, focused the story around her a little bit more to make her the protagonist. I understand why they didn't. Reen is extremely popular, especially in Japan. He is just unheard of levels of popularity compared to the rest of the characters in the series. They need the series to make money. Reen sticks around for 4 1/3 games as the hero. I get it. Makes sense. But from a story perspective, Yuna really does feel like she takes on that role, and she's always been a favorite of mine. A lot of that's helped by the English performance. Erica Harlocker is just a really good actress, and she just puts so much like pathos, just emotion into Yuna. There are some scenes that like gave me goosebumps watching it, and that doesn't usually happen on like, a video game, not as much as in like a Martin Scorsese film. Like this is like real emotion coming from this character. And yeah, I think Yuna's great. The end. Number 5 is Mick Byrne. Believe it or not, Mick Byrne is my number 5 favorite character in the Trail series. Named after the world famous lawsuit involving spilled coffee at McDonald's. That's not true. Don't bother looking that up. I just made that up. That's not reality. Although it would be an interesting story if that was true. Mick Byrne is from the perspective of series lore, he's the character that I'm interested in the most. So he is a member of Ouroboros, right? Like he's one of the overarching like villain secret organization group that I'm sure is not truly villainous. I'm sure there's gray in here, right? Trails has always been about kind of the absence of pure good and pure evil. There's a lot of just like overlapping motivations in the Trails universe. So McBurn is part of this like organization that, from our perspective, at least at this point in the story, is kind of the shady secret society that is doing bad things in the world. He is a, I guess, somewhat reluctant antagonist to your characters throughout several of the games, right? He seems extremely disinterested in fighting you, but he'll do it because it's kind of the job. He kind of has to, right? But he just doesn't really care. He doesn't really go all out. He could fight harder, but he doesn't. He's just like, whatever, man. Like, I don't even want to be here today. Like, we have to do this. Let's just do it. Fine, we'll fight. So he starts out as that sort of reluctant, antagonistic force that doesn't have anything personal against your characters, but he's like, it's the job, right? He sees some similarities, between his situation and Reen's, which I don't know if we fully understand all of that yet, but it's interesting to say the least. And then near the end of his story so far, like I'm sure there's more to come from him as the series progresses. He sort of like he's had his memories blocked. I don't think they were erased, but I think he was prevented from remembering certain things about his past, where he comes from, the world. And at a certain point in the series, he like remembers this stuff. He realizes the things that he had been blocked from knowing, and he turns on a dime. You just get done fighting him, and he has these revelations. And you don't know what they are. We don't know what they are, but we know that he's had these revelations. And he just kind of stops and says, hey guys, I'm sorry. My bad. Peace out. I'm done. So I am just, and I got goosebumps just talking about it. Like, the mystery around him, I think, is core, is pivotal to the entire Trails lore, the bigger picture story that's going on in the background that I'm sure involves the Septian Church and Ouroboros and all of these different organizations and people. His revelation, whatever he learned in that moment, I think it was in Cold Steel 4, whatever he learns in that moment, which we still don't know, is absolutely pivotal to the series. And just the way he kind of like, almost just like goes pale and is like, oh crap, I'm really sorry, you guys. I shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. See you later. I'm gone. And then he just pieces out. That is so interesting to me. Like, it's amazing how it doesn't really reveal anything, right? We don't know anything about what he saw or who he is or where he's from. We still know nothing. We still know basically nothing about him. But I am just so like tickled by that. And it just like massages my imagination. I just want to know more. So I can't wait to know more about McBurn. And I think he's got a great name, because he is a fire guy, and they named the fire guy McBurn. So anytime you think a Trails naming convention seems a little too on the nose, then maybe like just remember McBurn. He's set the standard for on the nose naming conventions. Yeah. Number 4, Fee Clausel. Fee is a great character. She is my favorite playable character in the Cold Steel arc, and beyond. Honestly, she shows up again. She's a very important character. And that's kind of like from my perspective as a writer, like when I play these games, I'm always thinking about them from the storytelling perspective, the characters, the writing, the plot. I'm always thinking about it that way. And I feel like I'm able to kind of identify the characters that the writers are most interested in from a story perspective, the characters that are going to be the most important, the most pivotal to the broader story. And like, I felt from very early on that Fee was that kind of important character. So it kind of feels like, I feel like validated in a way that it turns out she actually is important. She's continuing to show up multiple games after, her arc, or the Cold Steel arc ended. She's a very important character. I really like how, she is, especially in the beginning, she comes across as kind of lazy, not just disinterested, which really feels to me like kind of a defense mechanism. She's like, I don't, with her backstory being what it is, she was a former Jaeger, which, if you're not aware, the Jaegers are these like paramilitary for hire groups that will go and just kill people, will just go fight wars and burn villages and do horrible things for anybody who's willing to pay them to do it. Sometimes it's governments, sometimes it's private individuals with a lot of money. They will just go and do it. They don't have any kind of moral qualm with that sort of thing. So she was a Jaeger. She was raised as a Jaeger. And obviously when you meet her, she's like 15. So you're like, this is a kid. But she's been, killing people since she was probably 12, right? So she's got a lot of experience in battle and with weapons, and has probably killed a lot of people by the time we meet her. So when she's kind of introduced to the class in Cold Steel, she puts on this air of just being extremely disinterested, bored, just wants to sleep all the time, doesn't want to engage. And it feels to me very much like a defense mechanism. Like, I feel like I've done similar things in social situations in the past, where it's like, I would love to engage with the people that I'm with, but I am deeply afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid they are not going to be interested in talking to me. And so I just kind of shut myself out and leave myself in the background because I don't want that rejection. I'm afraid that rejection might happen. I see that very same thing with her. And her, I think, reasoning for that is, hey, these people are just like normal people. And they all seem cool, but they're just normal folks. Like, they have not slaughtered a bunch of people like I have. They're going to find out what I did, and they're not going to want to have anything to do with me. So sort of in defense, I'm going to not have anything to do with them. I'm just going to keep to myself. And watching her over the course of Cold Steel, the entire arc, really, watching her kind of come to accept their acceptance of her. You know, there's some issues in the beginning. It's not all roses and sunshine, right? Like, there's some things she has to overcome, and that some of the other characters have to overcome in relation to her. But watching her grow into herself and become sort of dependent on them, just like they depend on her, it's just really good storytelling. It's just really, really good character work. I love Cassandra Lee Morris does the voice. Her performance as Fee, she's able to do that sort of disinterested tone, while at the same time there's that little bit of like kind of longing underneath it. She's a really good actress, just like Erica Harlocker I mentioned earlier, like really just breathes new life into her character, and the writing is so good. It's just, Fee's great, and I love Fee, and I'm glad that she's still a character, because she was my favorite in Cold Steel, and the fact that she's still around, still playing an important role in the Daybreak series and probably beyond is great. I love Fee. Number 3, Olivier Lenheim. For those of you who are about to play Trails in the Sky First Chapter for the first time, just prepare yourselves for Olivier, folks. He is just perfection. I love him. He's so he's like everything. Like, I would think that I would get irritated by this type of character, and maybe with a different performer, with different writing, different story, maybe I would. This character he's like buffoonish. And one of the things I love in the first game, in Trails in the Sky First Chapter, is he's accused of kind of putting on an act, because there is obviously more to him than what this kind of buffoonish exterior suggests. And so he's kind of accused of putting on a farce, like putting on a mask around people to throw them off guard. And he assures them, look, there is more to me, obviously, than what I initially presented, but this is real. This is who I am. And I just love that he's so upfront about, like, I'm not joking. Like he's joking, but he's like, my personality is my personality. This is who I am. This is how I am all the time. So, like, that's who I'm sorry. Like, that's who I am. And I just love that he's so upfront about who he is. He is constantly flirting and joking around. Seems like he doesn't take anything seriously. He does. Like, that's the thing about him that I think is exceptional, is he's actually, in a lot of ways, he is the heart of the entire Trails series. He's one of the most important characters in the overarching plot of Trails. He is tactical and thoughtful and brilliant. He's just brilliant. He's played by Matt Mercer, who is just a fantastic actor. His performance as Olivier is next level stuff. He's one of the best voice actors in the business, and Olivier would be great even without Matt Mercer's voice, but Matt Mercer elevates him to an entirely different level. He is fantastic, and Olivier, if you are just getting into Trails with First Chapter, you meet him pretty early on in Chapter 1. Get ready. He is a freaking treat. He's a treat. Number 2. This might ruffle some feathers. Estelle Bright. Okay. Now, number 2 is obviously very high very high on the list. Why is she not number one? Some of you are screaming. Some of you are punching your monitor right now. You're throwing your phone across the room. This idiot, he doesn't have Estelle Bright at number one. What is wrong with him? Let me tell you what's wrong with me. I think she's great, but I fluctuate a little bit on whether she's my favorite character or not. I'll try to explain. So all the way, the vast majority of the series, Estelle has been my favorite character, my favorite protagonist. I love her because she is such a ray of sunshine in a world that is otherwise frequently populated with very dire main characters in JRPGs. They're very serious. They are very focused on the mission or whatever the case may be. She is an extremely flawed person, like in the ways that you would expect like a 16 to 20s, early 20s person to be. She is, kind of erratic sometimes. She is emotional sometimes. She, gets in her own head. She says the wrong thing, puts her foot in her mouth frequently. She is sometimes overly aggressive. Sometimes she is like a real person. She's like a real person. And especially when the original Trails in the Sky came out 20 years ago, like this was a huge breath of fresh air. And it actually kind of has remained that way, right? She's great in Trails in the Sky first chapter. I have some issues with some of the writing in the new game, and I will talk about that more in my review. But she still manages to shine through even the kind of clouds that have been put over her by the new localization to an extent, and she is still just an amazing character. So I don't want to spend time talking about why she's not my number one, because I feel like that's not helpful or all that interesting, really. She's a fantastic character. She's number 2 on my list out of the 1,000 Trails characters. She's number 2 because she's so bright. That's no pun intended. It's not really a pun. Not trying to do wordplay. She's just very optimistic, and it just feels good when she's on screen. When she's doing her thing, it just feels good. As a Trails fan, I am extremely grateful. I don't know if it would have been as easy for me to get into the series if she wasn't the protagonist in the Sky games. She's just brilliant. She's a great character. Love Estelle. Number 1 is Van Arkride. Van Arkride. Normally Estelle is Bestel, but sometimes Van is Bestel. And in my case, Van is Bestel because Van is just so freaking cool. Now, some of this is, I think you can chalk some of this up to recency bias, right? Estelle was my favorite character for over a decade. But, then Van comes along and kind of usurps her as the number 1 position for me. And you could make a compelling argument that it's recency bias. And that's entirely possible. I am willing to accept that might be the case. And a few years from now, they might switch on my list again, and she might be number 1 and he might be number 2 or whatever. Who knows what they're going to introduce down the line as well, Beyond the Horizon, literally and figuratively. What they might show me that might change my mind a little bit. But Van is just so freaking cool. He's got the whole Han Solo thing where he's constantly just acting like he doesn't care, but he really does. He's the sort of person who cares so deeply that it keeps him up at night, right? He's so passionate about his friends and the people that are kind of in his care that he would do anything for them. But I think it's sort of similar to Fee, as sort of a defense mechanism. He has this kind of wall up of, I don't know, what's the word, passivity, or he just doesn't care. He's acting like he doesn't care. Disinterested in all this stuff, finds it so annoying that everybody's coming around his previously peaceful business, right? But he loves it. He loves it. And I think that's so charming that he's real in that way. People like that, right? People like Van in your real life. And when you really get to know that person, you kind of see through the farce that they're putting up of a disinterested, gruff, whatever jerk. He is deeply, deeply passionate about the people in his life, and he cares about them so much. And he has, his own sort of tragic backstory, like a lot of the characters do. And we don't fully understand all of the parts of that yet. I'm assuming that Beyond the Horizon will give us a little bit more. But he's had a rough time, and he has come out of it. He's a reasonably well-adjusted adult, considering that he, the things that he's been through. He loves his truck. I respect a guy that has a passion for a particular hobby. He likes tricking out his truck. I'm not a car guy myself. I play JRPGs, and I don't watch football. So like, it's kind of like worlds apart in terms of interests, but I can respect that he's got this hobby. I love watching it slowly, his truck slowly over the course of the series transform into a minivan, because he is kind of the soccer mom of the Trail series. I want to say that I'm stealing that from Dala, my friend Dala Games. Go subscribe to Dala Games if you aren't. He talks about a lot of great video games, and I think you will like him. But I'm pretty sure I'm stealing that thought from him. He's like the soccer mom of the Trail series. He's just carting everybody around, and I love it. I love Van. I like that he turns into like a superhero monster guy. That's cool. I'm into that. I think he's one of the more powerful characters. He's one of the more interesting characters, and he's one of the funnier characters too. Like, he's just got so many elements that I love in a character, and that's why he's my number one. So that's my list. Oh boy, we really got into it, and I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some food for thought. Maybe it's totally fine if you don't agree with me, if you would rank these differently. Let me know how you'd rank them down in the comments, and we can compare notes. This is my list, and I'm a normal person like anybody. Like, my interests and thoughts change from time to time. This list will fluctuate over time as I meet new characters, or if I replay games and kind of get a new perspective on some of the characters here. This list is definitely going to fluctuate. Like I said, there's maybe one or two characters that I left off that might have slotted in there. Not as high as like the top 5, but that would have slotted in there probably into my top 10 that I did not include, because to say anything about them that I find interesting would be a significant spoiler. So my list is going to change over time, but I would love to hear yours. So please let me know down in the comments. Also, if you did enjoy this, if you enjoy the sort of stuff that I make, if you would consider liking the video and subscribing, just because all of the weird stuff going on with views on YouTube lately is like having a real weird kind of negative effect on just the platform as a whole from the creator side. It's just, things feel really dark and strange right now. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you're not already, it would just help me realize that there are people out there that are interested and want to see more of the stuff that I make. If you don't, then, I get it. Thanks for watching this whole 35-minute video. Appreciate you. Also, I do have channel memberships. So if you are interested and able to support me and support the channel in that way, you can click the button down there to join our Discord. Thanks again to the members who are in the Discord. Really appreciate you guys. You guys are all fantastic. Thank you so much. And please check out our podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. We talk about JRPG related things every single Wednesday. So subscribe. Link is in the description down there. Anyway, that's all for now. Until next time. Bye.